Yesterday, my life fell apart. Fired from my job, no savings, nowhere to go. The city felt colder than ever. As I wandered the streets, exhausted and hopeless, I saw two men cornering a stranger in a dark alley. My heart pounded. Walking away was the safe choice. But something inside me refused. I took a step forward, unaware that this single moment would change everything in ways I could never have imagined. My name is Emma. 3 days ago, I had a job, a routine, and at least a little security. Now I had nothing. Fired without warning, my savings gone, my rent overdue. New York City had never felt this cold. As I walked aimlessly through the streets, my stomach growling and my hands shoved deep into my coat pockets, I kept replaying the manager's words in my head. "We have to let you go." Just like that, years of hard work erased. The streets were busy, people rushing past with purpose. Unlike me, I had no destination, no plan. I stopped near a small cafe, breathing in the scent of fresh coffee, my stomach twisting in protest. I had just enough for a cheap meal, but if I spent it now, what about tomorrow? Sighing, I turned away, my eyes scanning the street ahead. That was when I saw them. A dark alley. 2 men. 1 stranger. The man was backed against the wall, his hands up in surrender. The 2 others, both tall, dressed in dark hoodies, were closing in on him. My pulse quickened. A robbery? An attack? I should have kept walking. It was none of my business. But my feet did not move. My heart pounded in my ears as I glanced around. No one else seemed to notice or care. "Empty your pockets," one of the men ordered, his voice low but firm. The stranger hesitated. That was a mistake. The second man grabbed his collar, shoving him harder against the wall. "Now!" the first man snapped. I took a step forward before I could stop myself. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Hey!" The 2 men turned toward me, their eyes narrowing. The stranger looked just as surprised as I felt. "Walk away," one of them warned. I swallowed hard. I had nothing. No money, no job, no security. But for some reason, fear did not win. I could not just walk away. I took a deep breath and made my choice. My legs felt weak, but I stood my ground. The 2 men stared at me, their expressions darkening. The stranger, still pinned against the wall, looked just as uncertain as I felt. What was I doing? I had no weapon, no backup, and no plan, but something inside me refused to back down. "Leave him alone," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. The man gripping the stranger's collar scoffed. "And what are you gonna do about it?" He took a step toward me, sizing me up. I knew I was no match for them physically, but I was not completely helpless. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my phone. "I am calling the police," I bluffed, pressing the screen as if dialing. "You better go before they show up." The men hesitated. The one closest to me exchanged a look with his partner. "Forget it," he muttered. "Let's go." Reluctantly, they backed away. One of them shot me a glare before disappearing into the crowd. My heart pounded as I lowered my phone, releasing a breath I did not realize I was holding. The stranger sagged against the wall, rubbing his neck. He looked to be in his late 20s, with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. He straightened his jacket and let out a nervous laugh. That was unexpected. I managed a small smile. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, thanks to you." He studied me for a moment. "That was pretty brave." Brave? More like reckless, but I just shrugged. I could not just walk away. He nodded, his expression unreadable. "I owe you one." Before I could respond, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a crisp $20 bill and held it out to me. "For coffee. Least I can do." I hesitated, pride battling against the hunger gnawing at my stomach. Finally, I shook my head. "I did not do it for money." He smiled, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. "Then let me do something else. What is your name?" "Emma." "Well, Emma, I will not forget this." And with that he turned and disappeared into the crowd. I stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of everything that had just happened. Then, shaking my head, I walked away, unaware that by tomorrow, My entire world would change. The next morning, I woke up in the tiny, cold room I rented, if I could even call it that. My phone was dead, my stomach was empty, and my hope was running out. Yesterday felt like a blur. Losing my job, wandering the streets, saving that stranger. It all seemed like a dream. Maybe I had been foolish to step in, but deep down, I did not regret it. I rubbed my eyes and got up, shivering as I grabbed my coat. I needed to figure something out. I had no money for rent, barely anything for food, and no job prospects. As I laced up my worn-out sneakers, a loud honk from outside startled me. Who would be making noise this early? I peeked through the window and froze. A sleek black limousine was parked on the curb, the kind I had only ever seen in movies. Its polished surface gleamed under the morning light, and the tinted windows made it impossible to see inside. My heart pounded. This had to be a mistake. A driver in a suit stepped out and looked up at my building. Then, to my complete shock, he walked straight to my door and knocked. I hesitated. Was this a joke? A scam? Cautiously, I opened the door. The driver, a tall man with sharp features, gave me a polite nod. "Miss Emma?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "Yes?" He extended an envelope toward me. "This is for you." I stared at the envelope, my hands shaking slightly as I took it. It was thick, expensive, and had no markings. "Who is this from?" The driver gave a slight smile. "My employer prefers to remain anonymous, for now, but he insists you read it." I hesitated before carefully tearing it open. Inside was a letter written on heavy cardstock. "Emma, you changed my life last night. Let me change yours. Come outside. There is something I need to show you." No signature, just those words. My breath caught. The driver gestured toward the limousine. "Shall we?" Everything in me screamed this was too strange, too unreal. But another part of me, the part that had nothing left to lose, whispered, "What if?" I took a deep breath, grabbed my coat, and stepped outside. My legs felt unsteady as I stepped toward the limousine. This was insane. A part of me wanted to turn around and pretend none of this was happening. But another part, stronger, louder, urged me forward. I had nothing left to lose. The driver opened the door, and I hesitated for only a second before sliding inside. The interior was even more luxurious than I had imagined. Soft leather seats, a glowing panel of buttons, and the faint scent of expensive cologne. And then, sitting across from me was him, the stranger from last night, except he did not look like a helpless man anymore. Dressed in a tailored black suit, his piercing blue eyes locked onto mine with quiet intensity. He looked powerful, important. "Emma," he said with a small smile. "Glad you came." I swallowed hard. "What is going on? Who are you?" He leaned forward slightly. "My name is James Whitmore." He paused, watching for my reaction. "My family owns Whitmore Enterprises." I blinked. Whitmore Enterprises, one of the biggest corporations in the country, a name I had heard 100 times but never imagined speaking to in person. I shook my head in disbelief. "You are a billionaire," he smiled. "Technically, yes." Then his expression turned serious. "Last night, I was testing something. I was trying to see if anyone would step in when they saw someone in trouble. You were the only one who did." My heart pounded. "That was a test," he nodded. "It was a personal experiment. I wanted to know if people still helped without expecting anything in return." His eyes softened. "And you proved they do." I sat back, trying to process everything. Why am I here? James reached into his jacket and pulled out another envelope. "Because I want to help you the way you helped me." I hesitated before taking it. When I opened it, my breath caught. Inside was a job offer, a position at his company, a salary more than I had ever dreamed of, and a check, large enough to cover my rent and expenses for months. Tears burned in my eyes. I do not know what to say." "Say yes," James said simply. "You earned this." I exhaled shakily, looking down at the papers in my hands. Just yesterday, I had nothing. No job, no future. But one act of kindness had changed everything. I looked up at James and smiled. "Yes,